evening. Welcome back to this very special edition of the Glazov Gang, and we're back for our second segment with Ben Shapiro, Elisha Krauss, and...
Also mentioned.
What?
He's like in the extra credits at the end.
Like, and a cast of thousands, including Jeremy Boring.
Jeremy Boring. That's very humble of you, or is it a little bit of a complaint?
I'll leave it to the interpretation of the host, who should give me more airtime.
Okay.
Tell us how you
Elisha was very nobly and stoically quiet and was interrupted several times in the first segment.
Okay, I'm used
It's just
to
like
it.
the morning show.
It's like my job every day. I'm in the middle of 3 girls. I'm totally used to this.
You wanted to say something
just
about
wanted-
the breakdown.
Be free. Go.
Well, I did want to say something about the breakdown and tied in with what Jeremy was saying about how the Christian church needs to do what they do what they say. And Ben brought up the point about being passionate and playing to people's emotions, and how the other side is often a lot more passionate. And I think that unfortunately conservatism has been beaten down by, well, when we get passionate, we sound angry. And so it is really hard, especially being a woman, like when I get passionate, I sound like rhymes with a witch. And that you kind of have to battle that on radio, on television, on social media.
What do you get like when you get angry?
It rhymes with which.
Well, what people perceive sometimes.
Have you witnessed this?
No. No.
Okay.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, go on.
But so that sometimes when we appear passionate, that's when the other side is able to be like, oh, those like angry white people.
Well, you know how you-
So
thumping
wait,
their
you're
Bibles,
saying
like you were
so
saying.
when she
So it is
behaves
tough.
crazy, we shouldn't, as conservatives.
I'm just saying.
What you're
that
saying is we
need
have to face an uphill battle in terms of the media
Yes.
portraying us as angry and nasty and
Yes.
vitriolic if we
Okay.
get angry.
And,
Well,
and, and
there's
if
a way
the roles
past that.
and if the roles were reversed, and that was me in that situation,
They would be
the left
mocking the hell out of
would
you.
be mocking and
Right.
calling me names just like they do with other conservative women.
We
in
want to
media
take the
all all
moral
the time.
high ground.
But here, well, no, you don't have to. I don't believe in moral high ground. I think that whoever takes the high ground ends up losing. We can all fight over the high ground, and then we can figure out, where the body, when they come to carry our body away from the moral high ground, then we can determine how much that was worth it. But when it comes to emotion and the use of anger, for example, one thing that I always encourage, and this is true just as advice for people engaging in debate, it's okay to get emotional as long as you acknowledge you're getting emotional. So if you say to somebody, if you get angry on the air, for example, and then you say, yes, I am angry, and I'll tell you
sometimes
why
they say,
I'm angry.
I'm ticked off.
Right,
And
and
that's
I
why.
think
what I would say is we should be so lucky as to have people on our side who are as passionate about defending the Jewish state of Israel as that woman is of defeating them.
Yeah, but not acting like that with the breakdown afterwards. You mean the passion that she had. But we still don't know if it was really passion about Israel. But what I'm saying is there might be some other factors there. But let's leave this here for a second. Conclusion. Has anybody here, tell the truth, in terms of that emotional breakdown that we saw, ever behaved in such a way in their life? Ben, have you ever had a...
When Jeremy and I broke up the first time, the first time. It gets easy,
You guys broke up. And
that first time was really rough.
Is there a video clip of that? No.
Thank God, no.
Okay, Elisha?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I really don't.
Jeremy?
The first time that they canceled, I can't even make a joke here, no.
You've
It's
never
too late,
had
I've
like
taken
that,
it.
right?
It's too late, yeah, it's
Okay.
gone. I mean,
Once
gone. It's
again,
been taken
Ben
away.
takes up all the airtime, and he
It's gone,
steals
dude. Just let
Jeremy's
it go.
jokes.
Just let it go. It's gone.
Very, very quickly, in one sentence, of everything we've discussed so far, obviously you guys are brilliant in terms of now recommending and showing through action how conservatives are supposed to fight the political culture war, which has been a failure up to now in large segments of the conservative movement.
Yeah.
One sentence conclusion, what are we learning right now of how we have to be fighting this culture war? And you're leading the way, Ben. One sentence or 2 sentences.
You have to fight it with a moral narrative infused with passion. That's the entire thing. Really, that's the.
And we failed in that up till now.
Moral passion infused with moral narrative infused with 5 words. That's the entire thing. And unless conservatives learn how to do this, they're going to lose from here to the end of time. And it's true in churches, and it's true in synagogues, and I've seen it in my own synagogue. The fact is that what the left has done, and it's amazing they were able to do this with just a few nonprofit exemptions, is they've basically taken the religious community completely out of the realm of discussing politics in the first place, and certainly discussing
so
politics with
dangerous.
passion.
Yeah.
And we failed up till now. In terms of-
100%.
Elisha?
I would say, piggybacking on what Ben just said, we need to learn how to engage the young conservatives that we have.
Okay.
And engage and empower them. Because I think for a very long time it has been the old guys
Yeah.
in the cigar room with lots of money, and they're not talking to normal people like you and me.
When I go give my speeches and talks, and partly, I think largely it's because I'm very boring that this is happening, but very few young people among conservatives. This is a tragedy. Last words of wisdom go to you, Jeremy.
Jericho. It's the TV show that I was going to make a joke about earlier. When they canceled Jericho, I definitely broke down and wept.
So you've admitted it. But did you really cry? But not like
Can
that.
Mrs. Boring affirm?
Okay. Piers Morgan leaving CNN. I think there was a turning point. Ben, when I watched that, that was like Pee Wee Herman, Piers Morgan, fighting Mike Tyson, Ben Shapiro. I mean, bang, bang, bang. You wrote an article the other day as well, or at truthrevolt.org, showing that the ratings significantly started to drop after you gave
And
him...
one of our staffers looked at it.
You
I mean,
gave him an ass whooping, real down-home
Do you
Mississippi
still have a
ass
piece of the
whooping.
ear?
Well, I do actually like to quote Mike Tyson in this context. Mike
Okay.
Tyson had a great quote in this context. He always said, "Everybody has a plan until you punch him in the nose."
Yeah, that's
Right, and that's how debate is supposed to work. Right, you don't wait. You don't wait till they attack you. You just go in and you punch.
Like when
Right,
you
and you go
said
for the
that
throat.
he's standing on the graves.
Because that's what he was
of-
doing. I mean, this is the whole thing.
He was upset.
Well, because
He
they
told Marco.
characterize us without evidence. Our goal is not to, characterize them without evidence. It's to characterize them with evidence. Whether I'm at UCLA calling people Jew haters for hating Jews, or whether I'm on Piers Morgan saying he's
Okay,
standing on the graves
what
of
do you
kids
think
in
of
Sandy Hook.
Morgan leaving?
Look, I think that it was inevitable. I can't take sole credit for knocking him off the air. His ratings were down 40% from the first year that he was on. They'd started to increase in the aftermath of Sandy Hook. After I was on, they decreased another 20%.
Yeah.
So the fact that Piers is off the air, it's really attributable to one factor and one factor alone, and that is he had a tremendous amount of scorn and antipathy for the American
Okay.
people.
That's right.
I think people
after
didn't-
the beating that you gave him, did you feel a little bit bad for him? Like, did you feel like saying sorry or?
No, I mean he was not. I actually turned to him during the break and I told him I was having a great time, and he looked at.
Did you feel sorry
He
for
was
him a
pissed.
little bit? It was a mismatch.
No, I mean I didn't feel. I'll tell you what's funny about it. When I walked out of that debate, I'm sure I called you. I think I talked to you right after, and I think I was telling people that I thought it was an 8 out of 10. Okay. I did not think it was a 10 out of 10, and that was not for any particular reason. Just because if we'd gone on for half an hour, I could have forced him into even more of a corner. He actually cut that second segment short.
Yeah.
It was actually shorter than usual because he wanted to get me off the air.
Okay, Elisha, your thoughts on Ben's KO of Morgan and now Morgan leaving CNN?
I think it'll be really interesting to see if CNN decides if they're going to go the route of someone a lot like him, or if they're going to try to go back to the Larry King
Well, have
model.
you heard the rumor at The Wire that somebody might be replacing him who's at this table? Am I
Yeah,
correct?
I mean Jeremy. You don't know.
What do you think? Is
What's
that
funny
possible?
about that?
I think it would be really. I think it would be a very smart move for CNN to pull in a conservative like Ben. Absolutely, it would be brilliant. It would be.
They're not serious, and it's
But
never
they're
been.
not serious?
But no.
But they're not
Would you
serious
take
about
it?
it because they're
Of
going
course
to
I
go.
would take it. I'll take
You
any
totally
platform.
should.
Of course I would take it. If they offered it to me, I would take it in a heartbeat.
It would be a huge platform and a huge opportunity.
Okay.
Absolutely. But and I totally hated watching Piers Morgan because of that like snark and just antipathy.
Well, and you know what happened?
Elisha, did Ben become your hero that night, or was he your hero before?
Like my personal? No.
Yeah.
My
I mean,
uncle's
he
a
did a
Navy
great job.
SEAL, so he's my personal hero. But Ben is in my top
Right
5.
up there. Okay,
but,
just
but her shrine, which includes her uncle and Sean Hannity,
Okay.
now also includes.
Okay, Jeremy, your thoughts on Ben's beating up of Piers Morgan and then now Piers Morgan leaving CNN?
Well, I think it's in some ways tragic to see someone like Piers Morgan leave the air, because I actually am of the opinion that the louder the left is able to talk, the better for the right.
So we're not supposed to mock him either? We
No,
can't
I'm-
mock this woman. Now we can't mock
No,
Piers
you can
Morgan.
certainly mock Piers Morgan. I'm just saying that having him out there was nothing
Okay.
but good for us. That said,
Okay.
I think that Ben's segment on Piers Morgan that night is literally the how-to. Every politician on the right, every media personality on the right should have to study what Ben did to Piers Morgan. I think it was the best response to the left that I've seen in my lifetime.
Hey, Ben, if you
I
were
appreciate that. That's nice.
debating Obama, that foreign policy debate, instead of Romney, you would have gone after Obama on Benghazi.
Of
right?
course, and I would have known what I was
Yes.
talking about, as opposed
Yeah.
to Romney, who clearly did not.
Because
I mean, making
our
the
problem is we're trying to be too nice.
And
Well,
when Candy
it's-
Crowley corrected you, you would have.
going after Candy
Yeah.
Crowley. I mean, you need to be on the offense all the
Offense, yeah.
time, right? I mean, this is basic Patton, right? We're not interested in holding our ground. We're interested in holding them by the nose and kick them in the ass, right? I mean, that's the point
right.
here. And the goal is to find what their tactic is, and you have to game plan it. Too many conservatives walk into these things without game planning it. I talked to you, Jeremy, before I did the debate.
That's right.
And we actually talked about how I was going to do the debate. And there were only two things I knew I was going to do going in. One was the standing on the graves of Sandy Hook point, because he was doing it.
You threw him off.
And the second, well, he couldn't deal with it because it was his only tactic.
got upset.
It was his only. It wasn't just that he got upset. The only thing he was able to do, his only tactic, was characterizing as morally evil his opposition.
That's
Anybody who disagrees with me is bad and doesn't care enough. And so when I said that to him, he couldn't go there. In fact, during the break, right, it was a 2-segment interview. During the break, he actually brought out a kid in a wheelchair. Right, and put the kid in the audience, and you could see the cameraman was getting ready to swivel the camera, and Piers was getting ready to do this routine where he did, well, if you really believe what you're saying, say it to this poor...
That's an excellent impression! Wait, let's hear that again. Do it again. Let's hear it.
Dance, monkey, dance! He was getting ready to say it to this poor, crippled child who's been hurt in some sort of... And the problem for him is if he had done that, I immediately would have come back with, okay, first you were standing on the graves of the kids of Sandy Hook, and now you're standing on this poor guy's wheelchair. You're exploiting victims in order to make your point, and you're implying that I don't care about this guy and
But
his injury.
this goes right back to your confrontation at UCLA last night, right? It's to say that no one, probably in their entire time in the United States of America, none of those Palestinian students had ever had their fundamental morality questioned.
Yep. Yep. No, they've been told over and over that they are the morally righteous. And again, you use the phrase unearned moral righteousness, which is one of my favorites. And it is absolute unearned moral superiority. This is how the left feels good. They don't actually have to do anything in their life.
Yeah.
They don't have to give charity. They don't have to make your life better. They don't have to give you a job. All they have to do is feel better than you. And that makes him a good person. So
Yeah.
with Piers, once I took that away from him,
Yeah.
he had no place to go. And that's so that was one point. The other point that obviously was YouTubeable, and Colbert ended up making fun of it on his show, is when I handed him the copy of the Constitution, which of course I had planned before, because that's how I have a copy of the Constitution in my breast pocket. The tiny Constitution, correct?
But that was a little bit mean, and he humiliated him a little bit.
Well,
Was that a good tactic?
Please don't ascribe to me a value that I don't have.
Okay.
Being nice is what's gotten us into this mess. When I say things like "don't mock the woman on the
Okay.
UCLA campus," it has nothing to do with niceness or
Okay,
meanness.
of course, okay.
It has everything to do with
Effectiveness.
Yeah, you
effectiveness.
exposed him.
Strategy.
You
That's
exposed
exactly
him.
right.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, and when I handed him the Constitution, the point that I was making to him is, you're trying to discuss gun rights from the perspective of, should the government allow you to have X? Okay,
That's
once we
right.
get into the business of should the government allow you to have X, that's not America anymore. The fundamental idea of America is that rights do not spring from the government. It's not what the government will allow me. It's in what world the government has to justify its encroachment on my rights. My rights pre-exist the government. It's the government's job to explain to me why I should give up my rights for some higher purpose.
That's what we're seeing just
Yeah,
today in
no, no.
Arizona, right? In Arizona today, the Jan Brewer, governor of Arizona, struck down a law passed by the Arizona legislature that would preserve the religious freedom of people in that state. And one of the problems that I have with the media coverage of it is they keep saying that it was a law built to give religious freedom to people, which would be used for bigotry, for the purpose of bigotry. There is no law that the government of Arizona can pass that gives me religious freedom. I have religious freedom. At every point we lose.
Exactly. We've accepted their fundamental premise,
That's
which is
right.
that all of these rights spring from government in the first place. So if government decides to change the right or alter the right or curtail the right, that's okay. But the fact is that it's precisely the opposite. My right to practice my religion, if the government does not defend that right, the government is illegitimate, okay, by its own terms, under the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. The minute that the government decides that it is no longer its purview to protect my right to freedom of religion, and instead decides that it's its job to uphold violations of that right, the government itself becomes illegitimate. So it's a complete reversal of how the left thinks.
Excellent.
That's exactly
Thank you.
right.
We just have a few minutes left here. I want to get to two more issues if we can, very briefly. But before we go, I asked Elisha, in terms of the Pierce Morgan thing, was Ben your hero before or after the Pierce Morgan beating?
I would say that Ben became my hero.
After you broke up.
Yeah.
Well, he handled it so well. I mean, really,
Okay, yeah.
fortitude is the one word I would use to describe
Okay, excellent.
Ben Shapiro.
Well, I mean, when I showed up on your lawn with the boombox and the whole
Okay,
deal, that
ladies
helps.
and gentlemen,
You
please.
should hear him do beat poetry.
Such a good
Ladies and gentlemen, please, we have to be very brief with this one. UN Ambassador Samantha Power, in a tweet, quote, Daniel Pearl's story is reminder that individual accountability and reconciliation are required to break cycles of violence. End of quote, Elisha.
Mark Levin is probably also one of my personal heroes. He is a brilliant guy.
He's in the shrine. It's getting crowded in that
He's
shrine.
in the shrine too. And he had an incredible monologue about this the other night after she had that idiotic tweet. And he was like, you know, he just recapped. Folks, reminder, Daniel Pearl died because those evil, radical terrorists asked him, was your father a Jew? Was your mother a Jew? Are you a Jew? And that's why they decapitated him. It had nothing to do with anything that Samantha Powers has in her stupid little head and could ever tweet.
And why is Power tweeting that?
Because of unearned moral superiority, right? She is able to tweet that because when the left makes outrageous statements, especially Jew-hating statements, they go completely unchallenged. Although I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. I do think that individual responsibility would, in fact, have saved the life of Daniel Pearl. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed could have had some individual responsibility not to be a murdering 7th century savage.
Yeah.
Ben Shapiro.
Well, I mean, when you look at that tweet, I mean, there was reconciliation between his larynx and the knife they were using to chop off his head. I mean, the idea that Samantha Power is willing to put that out there, it demonstrates that the naivete, and it's beyond naivete because I think these people know better. I don't want to grant them the privilege of naivete.
They think they can get away with it, and that's why she did it.
That's right. She thinks that she is able to do the miscongeniality version of foreign policy, right? She's for world peace. And all of us who are against her and think that she's wrong, we are for war, right? This is what they've done with Iran sanctions, same deal. We say, you know, Iran is not paying any attention to our peace deal. They're developing nuclear weapons. And they say, well, give peace a chance. You're pro-war. I mean, this was the headline across the top of Huffington Post.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very sorry. Our time is up. 20 seconds each. Final words, please. Only 20 seconds. Whatever is on your mind right now when you go to sleep at night. What's the most on your mind? It could be anything. Jeremy?
Well, other than making it into Elisha's shrine, which, as of tonight, is one of my top priorities, I would have to say that the fact that Republicans and conservatives do not know how to tell our story is the fundamental detriment that we're facing.
Storytelling, very important, right? Elisha?
My daughter's future. I mean, she's only 6 months old, and I just think about the nation and the values that I want her to teach her and educate her to make her own decisions and to realize as a woman, being a conservative Christian woman who can make your own independent choices is the true feminism.
Wow. And final words of wisdom go to freedom fighter Ben Shapiro.
We're not conservative. There's nothing left to conserve. We're on offense. Okay, our territory is gone. The only thing that we can do now is break out, right? This is our breakout point. And the only way that you're going to break out of a box is to be unbelievably aggressive and to never stop fighting. And that means we can't get tired, and it means that we can't get bored, and it means we can't get distracted. We have to be as single-minded as the left has been for the last 80 to 100 years in order to reverse the sort of massive change that has occurred in this country. And we put our kids to bed at night, and we tell them what we did during this crucial time, during I mean, really, what is the breaking point for the United States. We can't sit there and tell them anything other than we were fighting as hard as we possibly could every single day to affect the future of the country and change it into the freedom and liberty country that it once was and can be again.
That's why I took him back.
Wow. Ben, Elisha, Jeremy, an honor and a privilege to have such brave freedom fighters who are fighting on the front lines. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
We'll see you next week on the Glazov Gang.